who Al-Mujib is, then we would not make dua to Allah, right? So the fact that we make dua to Allah means that we believe in his name Al-Mujib, because he's the one that responds. So, so subhanAllah, you just learn about these names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it helps you understand that any situation that you're in, you can find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to lean upon. And one of the most amazing things I heard, and this was from Sister Yasmin Mujahid, which inspired me to give today's talk again on the names of Allah, is in order for you to experience the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have to go through certain situations. For example, if you want to experience who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Ash-Shakur and Ash-Shakir is, those are two names of Allah, you would maybe have to go through an experience in your life where you're not appreciated, where you're not feeling thanked. And in that situation, you would know who Allah is as Ash-Shakur and Shakir, the one who appreciates you, the one who understands what you're going through, and the one who gives you rewards more than you deserve. For example, the fact that he gives us Laylatul Qadr, which Sheikh Salman Hani mentioned something very interesting. We usually mentioned about Laylatul Qadr that it is better than 1,000 months of worship. But if you take it for literal sense, then that's what it means. But there's another opinion, because in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, if someone wanted to show you that they are going to be your friends forever, or if they wanted to give an expression of friendship for a lifetime, they would say that I would be your friend for more than 1,000 months. So based on that, there's an opinion that in fact, Laylatul Qadr, the reward of it is not necessarily just 83 years, but it could be infinite amount of rewards. It could be amount of rewards of lifetime and beyond our lifetime. So that's what's at stake, right? So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of those who witness this beautiful night. And that connects back to Allah's name, Ash-Shakir and Ash-Shakur, because Ash-Shakir and Ash-Shakur is someone who gives you way more than you deserve. So based on a few hours of worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at night, he's willing to give you the rewards of a lifetime. So that's how, more and more names of Allah open up for us, and it continues with us after Ramadan. So the name that I chose today is a name that has to do with people who feel that there's something missing in their life, or something is incomplete, or they feel broken, either physically, financially, emotionally, with the relationships. In any way, if you feel broken, the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we can call out to is Al-Jabbar. Now, to go back to my first point, in order for you to experience Al-Jabbar, there has to be something that is broken in your life, right? So that's the beauty of it. For you to experience Al-Jabbar, there has to be brokenness. So when you feel broken, you will then be able to unveil the name of Allah, Al-Jabbar. So in fact, when we see things, the pandemic and things are broken around us, the economy, this has brought many people to learn about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Al-Jabbar, the one who mends your heart, the one who mends and completes and fixes things. So this will be the name today, inshallah, for us to revive in our lives and to call on to. And inshallah, I want to give you guys a few verses from the Quran to mention who Al-Jabbar is, and then give you some tips on how to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with his name Al-Jabbar. The first ayah in the Quran, which should inspire us to get to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through his names, because it's not an optional thing, it's an order from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where in Surah Al-A'raf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, بَعْدَ أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى فَادْعُوهُ بِهَا وَذَرُوا الَّذِينَ يُلْحِدُونَ فِي أَسْمَائِهِ سَيُجْزَوْنَ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. And to Allah belongs the best names, so invoke him by those names. So invoke Allah by his names, and leave the company of those who practice deviation concerning his names. They will be recompensed for what they used to do. And so those who do not know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because of his names, they would always find confusion in their lives, and they will feel that there's doubts in their hearts in regards to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because they don't know the different aspects and the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if someone only focuses on the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is a name of Allah as well, Al-Wadud, then they would find it difficult to understand that Allah is also Al-Hakim, and also Al-Aziz, and also Al-Latif, the one who works in a very hidden way. He does things in a subtle way. So there might be situations where it just doesn't make sense to them. So if they only focus on the mercy and love of Allah, but they don't understand that there's wisdom in certain other situations where it might seem like Allah is not loving, then they would have doubts in their hearts. So it's important to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through all of his names. And that's an order by Allah, and not just know Him, but to call out to Allah by those names. And so that's what we're going to learn about this name of Allah, Al-Jabbar. Another ayah that we all heard about is so beautiful, and this is where I really appreciated Sheikh Omar Malik, who used to really focus on word-by-word analysis of the Quran. And in this ayah, this is in Surah Al-Baqarah, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. I'm sure you've heard of this ayah many times, but if you just focus on the word ida, he mentioned that وَإِذَا means when. It doesn't mean if. So just that one word is so precise that Allah is saying that when my servants ask you, O Muhammad, concerning me, and they tell them that I am near. So the example he gave was if you were in the army, if you're a mother and you have a son or a child in the army, and you are, you fully expect them to return back, right? So you don't say as a mother that if my child comes back to me, then this I will do this for her, for my child. You would always say when, because you have full hope and you know for sure that you want your son to come back. So you wouldn't say if my son returns. So in this ayah, Allah is saying that when my slave will ask me, meaning Allah is always expecting us to return to Him. Allah's doors are always open, and He's not saying if, but anytime, or He's so certain that His slaves would call onto Him. And so His doors of dua are always open, and He's expecting us to make dua and calling onto Him. And when we do, He returns with joy and happiness, and He never leaves the hands of His slaves empty-handed. Another aspect, this is mentioned in a hadith of Prophet that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is hayyun and karimun. So He is shy. When a slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raises his hands, he is too shy to let the hands of his slaves return without answering his call. Right? So this is another quality of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So keeping that in mind, what does Al-Jabbar mean? This is one of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we do not want to use for human beings. Like a human being would not want to be called a Jabbar, because there are many other names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala which human beings could also have, as long as it doesn't have the al in the beginning. So a human being could be Rahim, Rahman, Kareem, but for a human being to be called Jabbar is a negative quality. But anything that is mentioned about Allah is a positive quality. So Al-Jabbar has multiple meanings. In Surah Al-Ghafir, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, الَّذِينَ يُجَادِلُونَ فِي آيَاتِ اللَّهِ بِغَيْرِ سُلْطَانٍ آتَاهُمْ كَبُرَ مَقْتًا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ وَعِنْدَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كَذَلِكَ يَطْبَعُ اللَّهُ عَلَى كُلِّ قَلْبٍ مُتَكَبِّرٍ جَبَّارٍ. So at the end, Allah says, thus does Allah seal over every heart belonging to an arrogant tyrant. So when Allah uses the word Jabbar for a human being, that means that person is a tyrant. It's the negative quality. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses it for Himself, it's a positive quality. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Jabbar means the one who compels and the one who puts pressure on those who are oppressing others. Or any human being, they are always in the control of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and our bodies are compelled by the way Allah has created us. We don't have a choice on our gender, on the way we look, and many things about our creation, because Allah is Al-Jabbar and He does what He wishes. But the other beautiful meaning of Al-Jabbar is the one who puts positive pressure and the one who fixes brokenness. And this is a quality of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that should really motivate us to get to know who Al-Jabbar is. But what's amazing is Al-Jabbar doesn't just mean the one who mends things or fixes things, but He's the one that fixes things better than they were before they were broken. And so one of the laws of the universe, and I'm sure the ones with the medical background can tell us, that when your bone breaks, that crack or that part of your bone, when it heals, it actually becomes stronger than it was before it broke. So this is Al-Jabbar, the one who fixes your brokenness to the point where there's no cracks left and you are completely healed and you actually become stronger than you were before you broke. Unlike human beings, when if a glass or a vase or a pot broke, if you try to put it together, you will still see the cracks in it. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala al-Jabbar, when He mends things, He mends them completely without any traces of brokenness. And you actually come out stronger than you were before that situation occurred. And so, subhanAllah, for us to really appreciate Allah, something has to be broken. And then you would see how when Allah mends that brokenness, you will feel a stronger person, and that would make you appreciate Al-Jabbar. Now, another beautiful thing about the name of Al-Jabbar, which a lot of people might not realize, is what is a tyrant, right? So in Surah Maryam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions about Zakaria alayhi salam and about Yahya alayhi salam and about Isa alayhi salam, that they were not Jabbar, but the context that they are connected with the word Jabbar is very important because, for example, for Isa alayhi salam or for Zakaria alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that he was not Jabbaran Asiya. وَبَرًّا بِوَالِدَيْهِ وَلَمْ يَكُنْ جَبَّارًا عَصِيًّا. This was mentioned about Yahya alayhi salam, that he was dutiful to his mother and he was not a disobedient tyrant. So you might say, what does tyranny have to do with not being good to parents? What Quran is telling us is a person who is a real tyrant is not necessarily someone who is oppressing people in a country, but the worst tyrant is the one who disobeys and puts down and disrespects his parents. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala disconnected Isa alayhi salam and Yahya alayhi salam from being those who were Jabbaran Asiya, and another verse Jabbaran Shaqiya, that they were not disobedient to their parents. So that's something that's kind of eye-opening for those who feel that oppression and being a tyrant only has to do with leadership. But the worst of tyrants are those who are undutiful, disobedient, and disrespectful, and they put down their parents. So may Allah protect us from being of those. Ameen. Just to wrap up, I know it's a short talk and I want to open it up. So let's look at 4 meanings of Jabbar and then look at 3 more things. So 4 points as far as remembering who is Al-Jabbar, and then 3 points on how to get close to Al-Jabbar. So number 1, as we mentioned, Al-Jabbar is the one who compels. He is the one that controls the way we breathe, the action that we take, the way our bodies are created, the weakness that we feel, the ability to sleep, the ability to wake up. He's the one that's controlling all of that. And also in Urdu, you must have heard the word majboor, right, which also comes from the same root word. Someone who feels that he is compelled and he is in a situation where he doesn't really have a choice, and that's a person known as majboor, someone who feels compelled. The second meaning of Al-Jabbar is the one who fixes brokenness, the one who mends. What's interesting is the word algebra, which was Muslims played a big role in the field of algebra, also comes from the same root word, which means fixing equations, right? So that's kind of interesting that the word algebra also comes from the same root word. The third meaning of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's name Al-Jabbar is the one who is overpowered, and he overpowers his creation, and the creation has to submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah does not submit to anyone else. One of the du'as of the Prophet ﷺ, between the sajdas, so when he would go in sajda and come back up, in between the 2 sajda, he would make the dua, Allahumma ghfirli warhamni wa'afini wahdini warzuqni wajburni. Oh Allah, forgive me, have mercy on me, guide me, guard me against harm, provide for me sustenance and salvation, and wajburni, and to fix my brokenness. Once again, Allahumma ghfirli warhamni wa'afini wahdini warzuqni wajburni. So once again, wajburni has the same root word as Jabbar, which means in this situation that, oh Allah, fix my brokenness. If you have a broken heart, financially you feel broken, relationship-wise you feel broken, your heart feels broken, in any way you feel broken, or you need someone to mend your situation, that's where Al-Jabbar can fix your problems and mend your heart. And finally, there's another dua that I like to share with everyone, which is what the Prophet ﷺ used to make in his ruku and his sujood, which also uses the same root word, Jabr. Subhana dhil jabaruti wal malakuti ya'i wal kibari wal azami. Glory be to the one who has all power, sovereignty, magnificent, and might. So in sajda, in ruku, in between the two sajdas, the Prophet is using this name of Allah, Al-Jabbar, right? So that means that this is something that was very much used on a daily basis by the Prophet ﷺ. Another interesting thing is a Moroccan scholar was asked about the Quran. Can we beat our children to teach them the Quran, which is a pandemic, which is a problem in certain countries where people are, told to teach or learn the Quran and by beating them. So his response was so beautiful. He said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not say Allama al-Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not say Al-Jabbar Allama al-Quran. He said Ar-Rahman Allama al-Quran. So the one who was merciful taught the Quran. And so when we teach people the Quran, we have to show mercy and not pressure them and force them and compel them. And in worst case scenarios, beat them to learn the Quran. So let's finalize, inshallah, with three ways on how to now get close. This is very quick on how do I actually get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Jabbar. So number one is, if you ever feel compelled or you feel broken, you ask Allah al-Jabbar. Number two is, if you are a Jabbar yourself, right? Meaning you have those qualities where not necessarily being a leader who is oppressing people, but if you have a younger sibling, or you have control over children, right? Like you are a parent and you have control over your children, and you abuse that power to put pressure in a negative way on people, and you compel people, and you always want to say your opinion, but you don't want to listen to others' opinions, and you oppress people, then you have to remember Al-Jabbar, that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Jabbar, and no one should compel other people in a negative way. And so if you want Allah Al-Jabbar to respond to you, then we have to make sure that we don't have those qualities of putting pressure in a negative way on other people. And finally, we should call on to Al-Jabbar in situations of brokenness. So brokenness, oppression, in those situations, we call on to Allah Al-Jabbar. Hopefully this was something that will benefit us past Ramadan, throughout Ramadan, as you're making du'as in the last 10 nights, inshallah, call on to Al-Jabbar. And in any way you feel incomplete, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be there for us to mend our hearts. Jazakallah khair, everyone. Back to you, Brother Osama.
Brother Omar, do you have a moment? We're going to ask a quick question. We have a question from one of our attendees. To clarify one of the general ideas, they want to clarify. We feel Allah's names the most when we're feeling the opposite of that name, question mark, so they're clarifying. Is that the case? And for example, do we feel Allah's mercy the most when we have sinned? And how does that apply to Al-Jabbar?
So what I meant by, you have to, like, if you want to experience Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, then you feel in situations where you feel His mercy, that's when you will appreciate His name. So not the opposite necessarily, but in situations where you feel lack of mercy from people, and then you feel like all of a sudden Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps you, gets you out of a situation, listens to your dua, responds to you, and when you're calling out to Him, you feel the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala descending upon you, and situations start getting better, then you would appreciate Allah ar-Rahman. Similarly, Al-Jabbar, even though nobody likes to have incompleteness in their life, or brokenness, or feel that something needs to be fixed. But for example, you would never call a mechanic unless your car breaks down, right? You're not just going to call up a mechanic to come. So that, in that sense, you're not going to appreciate Al-Jabbar if something was broken. So to look at when we feel broken in our life, it's a way for us to unveil the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's actually a positive thing, because Allah allows you to go through certain situations so that you will return back to Him and appreciate Him more than you did before you felt that before you felt that brokenness. Hope that makes sense.
Jazakallahu khairan. Brother Shahid, you want to take it? Jazakallahu khairan, Brother Omar Malik. Brother Shahid, you got the share screen?
Yep. Bismillah.
Thank you so much, Brother Omar. Inshallah, so everyone, we're going to be transitioning off, inshallah, from this to our next segment of our program. Shahid is going to take it from here, inshallah.
Okay, Jazakallah khairan. So, Brother Omar, I think we sent you the quote ahead of time, just like our tradition we've been following the past couple of days. We'd like our speaker to give his or her input on the quote for today. So I'll go ahead and read the quote, inshallah, and then if you can just offer some insight or what it means to you when you see this quote. So the quote for today is, if you desire Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be persistent in granting you the things you love, be persistent in doing the things he loves. And this is from Imam Ahmed bin Hanbal, rahmatullah alayhi. So it's a very powerful quote. All the quotes, subhanAllah, we have had, they're either very short and consistent, but very powerful. And this one, adds to that picture. So Brother Omar, when you see this quote or hear this quote, what comes to mind, or what are some fruits you can give to us?
Yes, so alhamdulillah, you guys shared that with me earlier, so I just kind of recollected my thoughts about it. And this actually is very much like Imam Ahmad. What he's saying is not something out of the Quran and the Sunnah. It actually goes directly back to a hadith and the Quran. So we know from the fact that what's most beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the deeds that are consistent, and also the obligatory deeds come first, because that's what he loves the most before you add anything extra. So the fact of the matter is Fajr and Isha is way more beloved to Allah than Taraweeh, right? Even though we love to take the maximum benefit in the last 10 nights, but what's more beloved to Allah is obligatory prayers, the Fajr and Isha. So this is something just for myself as well, especially through the last 10 nights when we get tired. We want to make sure that we gain as much of the night, but most critical would be to make sure Isha and Fajr is not missed, because that's what Allah loves the most. When it comes to relationships, respect for your parents takes a much higher obligation than other relationships, because a lot of people are very nice to certain individuals, but they find it difficult to be good to their own families. So what takes higher priority is the obligatory relationships. And then I'll end with this hadith where the Prophet said in Sahih Bukhari, hadith Qudsi, that my servant does not draw near to me with anything more beloved to me than the religious duties that I've obligated upon him, and my servant continues to draw near to me with the nafal and the voluntary deeds until I love him. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned here as well that what really impresses Allah and are the consistent things which are going to stay with us throughout our lives, and the obligatory actions, because that's really what gets us close to Allah and increases his love for us.
No, Jazakumullah khairan. That's perfect. Actually, I'll share that one more hadith that we're taught in the Arba'in Nawawi, on the 40 hadith of Imam Nawawi, where it's narrated from the Prophet ﷺ as well, that verily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has laid down religious obligations, so do not neglect them. And he has set limits, do not overstep them. And he has forbidden some things, so do not violate them. And he has remained silent about some things out of compassion for you, not forgetfulness, so do not seek after them, right? And it's like, and this, when they talk about this hadith in the chapter, they call it the hadith where it's or the theme of it is the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I feel like that quote, subhanallah, it kind of mentions that point where Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal is kind of referring to that. If you follow the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and some of the things you mentioned, you fulfill your obligations, you fulfill, you try your best to please him, then he subhanahu wa ta'ala will be persistent in granting you, because he subhanahu wa ta'ala already grants us even when we don't do anything. I believe some of the speakers yesterday, they mentioned, I forgot the exact speakers, but I think it was Sister Samrina, when she mentioned about the shaitan, when he went out of Jannah, he still recognized Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted him. So just imagine us, inshallah, that are believers, believing men and women that are trying our best, and trying to be persistent. And I feel like that, like some of the things that you mentioned, and including that hadith, it would add to that, right? That if we're persistent in trying to do things, if we have good faith, we have good assumption of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we try our best, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will add to that. And Osama, what comes to mind when you hear this quote and some of the things that were mentioned?
No, Jazakallah khair. I feel like you guys really like covered a lot of it. I saw these messages right now. Jumana sent me one from a sister. So I also think, Brother Omar, she says, I also think that it's beautiful that Allah has so many names that no matter our situation, we can feel connected to him in some way through one or another one of his names.
Right.
Yeah, subhanAllah. Yeah.
What's amazing is when you call on to those names and you actually see the result, it just increases your love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a very different way. So when you make dua, if I could just share one tip, which was shared with me that really was life changing, was almost picture as if that dua has already been accepted. So, like for example, I made a dua for my mother-in-law to come from Pakistan, which was not happening for multiple years, and all I did was made the dua with a different type of conviction, where it was recommended that you actually imagine as if she's already here and playing with your kids. So I started making dua with the conviction that it's already happened, right? And it's just a matter of time. And I don't know how humanly it was going to happen, because she was being rejected for 15 years. And subhanAllah, just before the birth of my third child, she made it through. And then I was watching her playing with the kids. And at that moment, you remember Al-Qarib Al-Mujib, which was the names of Allah that I was calling out to. Because you had envisioned that in your mind that this dua one day will come true, and you had pictured that as if this dua has already happened, and then when you see it manifest in your life, it completely, the love that you feel for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is at a different level. Yeah.
Fadi has a comment here. How I think about it is that you do something that pleases Allah, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you a reward for that good action that you did. And then we had a question here. Is the first hadith about the consistency in what you do for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? I hear a lot about how much Allah loves consistency. So Sister I just wanted to say that we didn't pull up the actual hadith about consistency. We mentioned it. Brother Omar mentioned it. I think Brother Shad might have mentioned it too. But we didn't put it up on the screen. Brother Omar, do you want to take this? She says, the first hadith about consistency is the first hadith about consistency in what you do for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yes. So the hadith that I mentioned about the obligatory actions which are beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was from Sahih Bukhari, and then the other one, I'll have to look it up, but to translate it, it means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves small deeds but consistent.
Yeah, there is a hadith that goes, and I'll send it right here in the chat in a second, inshallah.
Yep.
Awesome. Is there any other comments or reflections, or would anyone else like to add anything when they see from what they can see from this quote? Omar, just saying Jazakallah khairan for the great talk, and inshallah we'll just go to the next slide. So if anyone else has any closing before we send it to the closing remarks and close up for tonight. And Brother Osama, please don't forget to mention, I think some of the individuals weren't here for your earlier message, so just mention that as well. So, even though today's even night, we are not sure if tonight is potentially Laylatul Qadr or not. And, it's just, we're going to try to remind ourselves, including myself and everybody, of this chart, just because when you do look at this chart, things come into perspective pretty quickly. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's even if you have, even if you're not 100% sure or motivated, this kind of reminds you to get motivated. So 83 plus years, 9.8 hours of worship, 1 hour equals 9.8 years, 1 minute is more than 58 days, and 1 second is more than 23 hours potentially. So, just diversify your portfolio and go from there. So inshallah, I'll go ahead and pass it back to you, Osama. And then if Brother Omar, you'd like to make just some closing remarks, and then we can do the closing dua and then call it a night for tonight, inshallah.
Yeah, definitely. And we had a question here from Faizi saying, do we just recite the name? How do you call upon Allah's names? And it's as simple as saying Ya Jabbar, Ya Rahim, saying like Ya, which is like a calling, a way of calling upon Allah. Or you could just, if you want to do it in English, Oh Allah, Oh Jabbar, right? Oh Rahman, Oh Rahim, is one of the simple ways. Brother Umar, do you want to comment further on that?
Yeah, the more it comes from the heart, unscripted du'as, when it comes to the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? That's something Shaykh Umar Sulaiman also mentioned. For those who are feeling that in the last 10 nights you're not able to really do the best that you wanted to do, he recommended that take half hour of your time and just make unscripted dua. No PDFs, no reading off of a WhatsApp message, just talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then all you do is just say, oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I don't feel appreciated sometimes. I do work and then people don't appreciate me. Oh Ash-Shakir, oh Ash-Shakur, help me. Make me feel appreciated and welcomed. If you feel broken, you say, oh Jabbar, help me out. I feel really broken, and I know you are Jabbar, and you're the one who mends people's hearts and fixes their brokenness. If you feel that you want Allah's forgiveness, you call on to Al-Ghafir, Al-Ghaffar, Al-Ghafur, Al-Wadud, Al-Afu, Al-Kareem. All of these names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to do with His forgiveness and His mercy, and so on and so forth, So the more you have understood those names, the different the conversation would be. And so if you find yourself that you're not able to talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for too long, that's where the names of Allah will really help you.
Jazakallahu khairan. No, Jazakallahu khair. So inshallah, Shahid, do you mind just sharing the quote one last time on the screen one more time? One of the brothers is asking.
Yeah, I think they're asking for the Laylatul Qadr flyer. So here, I'll go ahead.
Do the quote for just 1 minute, like 20 seconds, and then do the Laylatul Qadr, because one of the others is asking for the quote as well.
Okay.
And this quote is by Ahmad ibn This quote is by Ahmad ibn Hanbal. So if you want Allah, to give you the things you love, then be persistent in doing the things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves, is what Imam Ahmad is advising. So for everyone, so whoever just joined us, tomorrow we have a special program. Once again, it starts, of course, we have our usual MCWS program, and that's just, I'll share it in a moment here. After Shahid's done sharing his screen, let me pull that up for you guys, actually. So if you want to stick around for 1 or 2 more minutes, we'll share with you our program for tomorrow. Okay, I think he has enough time to take his screenshot now, so I'm gonna put it up. So this is our 27th night program for tomorrow. 9:45, we have our Khatira recitation, dua, Sheikh Ali and Sheikh Hassan. That's at bit.ly/MCWS Ramadan. It's our typical nighttime program, but just a little special tomorrow. Of course, we have Sheikh Ali and Sheikh Hassan, a little special program tomorrow. And then at 1 a.m. for our program is still going on tomorrow at 1 a.m. We will be having, and you're going to want to log into this link, the bit.ly MCWS halftime link. And at that point, Sheikh Ali is going to be our guest tomorrow night. So definitely want to tune in. And immediately after Sheikh Ali's talk, for those of you who are familiar with Imam Ishaq, he will be actually joining us tomorrow night, and he will be doing some Quran recitation, if I'm not mistaken, tomorrow night. Immediately after Sheikh Ali, which is a real treat, alhamdulillah, for those of us who are used to hearing him in Tahajjud at MCWS. So
we still will probably, depending on how long the talk goes, sorry, Osama, depending on how long the talk goes and if the questions and everything, depending on the amount of questions, we might still have the quote section, or we might not, and just go straight to the recitation of Sheikh Ishaq.
Correct. Yep. So Jazakumullah khair everyone for joining us, though. We appreciated everyone being here, and inshallah it motivates you to push through. It is an even night, but we know that Laylatul Qadr can be on an even night. So please, make sure you push through, and remember all of us in your du'as, and inshallah benefit from the reminder Brother Omar gave you guys tonight about the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and definitely don't wait till later. So use it tonight, make it an intention to use it immediately. Don't tell yourself I'm going to wait. They say, like, people who like to make a lot of plans, it's not a good thing necessarily. It's not always good to make a lot of plans. You always want to, planning is good, but you want to take action, subhanAllah. So, Brother Omar, you want to make a closing dua for us, inshallah?
Inshallah. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب اللهم حبب إلينا الإيمان وزينه في قلوبنا وكره إلينا الكفر والفسوق والعصيان واجعلنا من الراشدين سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. جزاك الله خير.
Jazakumullah khairan, everyone. Have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow, inshallah.
Thanks so much for joining us. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Someone asked for, let me see this. Is there any way you can post the du'as he mentioned in the chat, or ask him to repeat the du'as that can be said during salah? Which du'as did Brother Umar mention that were?
He said, I think, Allahumma inni, the ones between the sajdatain, the sajdatain, the Allahumma inni, Allahumma gfirli warhamni wajburni wa'afni warzuqni. Or wahdini. There's like a couple of different narrations, so we can find that and post that.
For those of you who are beginners at making dua between the two sajdas, it's authentic to say Rabbi gfirli, Rabbi gfirli. as the most basic form of dua between two sajdas, Rabbi ighfirli, Rabbi ighfirli. However, I will send the more, if you are motivated, I will tell you for a fact, it will improve your salah if you know more ad'iyah that you can make throughout. So let me pass that one on, inshallah. Just stay. Whoever is asking, stay in the chat, inshallah.
Yeah, Sister Hani, I think she said one of them was Allahumma gfirli warhamni wahdini wajburni warzuqni. There's like a few different, yeah.
Allahumma gfirli warhamni wahdini wajburni warzuqni wa'afini. So I don't know if this person who is asking can read Arabic. I'm going to post it in Arabic. So it's the part where he says, "An yaqul Rabbi ighfirli, Rabbi ighfirli," and say that repeatedly. Is he saying? So he's saying the dua is to say Rabbi ighfirli, Rabbi ighfirli. Wa yukarrir dhalik means to repeat that. You can also say Allahumma ighfirli warhamni wahdini wajburni warzuqni wa'afini. So that's a little bit more detailed version. I'm going to send. Maybe I can find you a transliteration. I think we found a good one. Okay. Okay, for the person asking, try and take a screenshot on your computer. I'm going to put it up for you right now. Okay, here we go. Just take a screenshot maybe. I don't even like, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't even like this part right here where they have like wa'afini. That's not right. Right? That's wa'afini. Wa'afini.
Oh, that's all good. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Actually, I think this even has a mistake. The Arabic is even wrong on this one. SubhanAllah. Okay. See if I can find you a better one that's better.
Wajburni wa'afini warzuqni.
This is correct.
Wa'afini. Oh, yeah, the last word.
Yeah, that one's wrong. Let's use this one. And it's so small.
I think Sister Samrina said she sent the dua.
Did she?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, she sent it to Sister Jemana. Sent it to Jemana, so just look at it.
Jemana's going to screen share. Perfect. Yeah. Yep, there we go. Now whoever wants to screenshot this one.
Perfect.
There's so many, guys, so many du'as in prayer you can memorize from the opening du'as of prayer, like so many you can get.
The other one too, the biggest one that a lot of people forget is the one closing right before we say salam, right? Where we say Allahumma inni na'udhu bika min an-nar, Allahumma inni na'udhu bika min fitnatul masih ad-dajjal, Allahumma inni na'udhu bika min fitnatul mahya wa mamat, wa Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min adhab al-qabr. I know I didn't say that in its proper order, but it's those four that we should say right before we say taslim, right before we say assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Because a lot of people just end on usually the Allahumma rabbana atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasanatan wa qina adhaban nar. So it's like you said, it's a lot of things we can do.
All right, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan, everybody. Sister Mina says she has that one too. Jumana, did she send it to you? Maybe share that one as well. Inshallah, I think then I'm going to close. Jazakumullah khairan, everybody. Assalamu alaikum.